following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco and across the moat from Oakland. I am, as usual, blessed with the presence of some of the most interesting folks on the planet, and that's what I do. I talk to them. Today, I get to talk to a mainstay at the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network about baseball. His name is Jack Degraw, and not only that, Jack Degraw, and not only that, Jack, you're bringing a guest with you to chat first days of spring training. Jack, who's with you?
Well, my good friend I met in Tampa, Kipp Christianson, and Kipp was an ex-college player, basketball, an ex-professional basketball player, and a wrestler. But the most important thing, he's a Green Bay Packer fan. So we got a lot to talk about.
All right. Well, let me ask you this, Tim, without knowing you. How far back do you go following the Green Bay Packers? Because I'm an old school guy, and I remember Bart Kowski, let alone all of it. What's your earliest memory of the Packers?
My first game ever was Lynn Dickey's last game. I guess that's where it started for me. James Lofton, John Jefferson, Philip Epps, Paul Coffey, was it Coffey or Kaufman, the tight end. That was where I started. So that would have been early, mid-'80s.
All right, that was the Pack is Back years, am I right?
Correct. Forrest Gregg was the coach.
Okay. Now, I remember when Forrest Gregg was a mainstay on that line that made the Pack great back in the day. So how was he as a coach?
Not very good. He didn't last long. Those 80s Green Bay Packer teams were not good. Let's be honest. They were not good. And we didn't see signs of life until Don Majkowski took over, the Magic Man, and then Favre took over after that. So that's where it really started.
All right. Tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in River Falls, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Old farm kid. And, that's Midwestern boy through and through.
What was your first baseball experience as a fan?
First baseball experience, unfortunately, because of where I am located, I'm in western Wisconsin, we never got to see the Milwaukee Brewers play. So my first baseball experiences were all the Minnesota Twins, which at that time, it's about 40 minutes away from River Falls, Wisconsin. We're kind of a border town. So, grew up watching the Minnesota Twins in the Dome.
All right.
So,
hey, just to get to know you personally a little bit, because it's your first time in the zone, let me ask you a few questions. What did you listen to music-wise when you were growing up?
Whatever my brother did, and that was usually bad hair bands of the 80s.
Okay.
He was 5 years older, so I just followed him. His taste in music wasn't
and
so
what
good.
did you read? What was what was on your bookshelf?
What did I read? First few books I remember reading were Jim McMahon books for the Bears.
Okay.
So sports books. I should probably not admit it, but a bunch of books about serial killers, Ed Gein, and then gangsters and Al Capone. Yeah.
Well, was the serial killers what, they smother a guy with Wheaties or what?
Hey, Ed Gein's from this area. He's from Wisconsin, so he made a few people into furniture. So I found that interesting.
Well, everybody has an art, and everybody's good at something. You got.
Yeah, he had a craft. That's
working
for sure.
with. Yeah, people working with their hands and their imagination. You got to give them credit for that, if not being a sociopathic killer.
I never really thought of him. He's an artist.
Yes, yeah. Credit where credit is due. How'd you get into playing ball? What was your inspiration? Who coached you? What were your favorite sports?
My favorite sports growing up was actually golf and basketball. But what got me into basketball more than anything was I ended up being 7 feet tall. And when I graduated high school, I was only about 6'7", 180 pounds. And after 1 year of college, I grew to 6'11" and 240 pounds.
Whoa.
So that's
and
really what got me into basketball.
You cannot coach height or speed.
No, you can't. No, you cannot.
Okay.
And when that happened, I figured, well, I have this height. I better give it a go. And that's how I got into basketball.
Okay, who was your mentor? Who was your early coach in basketball?
Early coach mentor would probably be my college coach, Coach Jim Smith, who's a legend in Minnesota. I think the all-time wins leader in this area for wins. He kind of brought me along and taught me the game, the best that he could, and then from there on, which I ended up having a decent college career. Well enough, good enough to get invited to camps after college. And then after that, it was kind of, a guy named Paul McKeskey who played for the Bucks.
Oh, I remember that name.
Yeah, he found me and just kind of put me under his wing and kind of groomed me. And then I had an agent that played, basketball named John Gregg, who played for the Sonics, and then obviously ended up being an agent for, guys like, Boogie Cousins, things like that.
Right.
And then, then I just started being around the right people, and they basically trained me into being, the pro player that I ended up being.
What was your strength as a pro player, and would you say was your weakness?
Let's see, the strength. My strength would not even be allowed today. My strength actually in the game was I was kind of, I wouldn't say a goon, but I was the guy that was out there, rebounding, setting hard screens, beating up on people. You know what I mean? Those guys that used to have to go guard Shaq and those kind of guys. That was kind of my game. It was an aggressive game. And that was back in the day. I mean, the Knicks had, what was it? Larry Johnson, J.R. Reed. The game was way more physical then. They would not even allow that now. So, and then my weaknesses?
Yeah.
Weaknesses. In some ways, my head. I was a great shooter, but I wasn't always the most confident shooter all the time. I was carrying 7 feet and playing professional level at about 270 pounds. So you could probably say my foot speed at times is probably a little slow. But, those have been my weaknesses.
Okay. What was your biggest thrill as a professional?
Biggest thrill as a professional? It's good. It's a really good question. I would actually say I was playing over in China. And this is, the year that Yao Ming actually just started playing in the United States. So while I'd been used to playing in front of large crowds, as a professional, but what was going on in China at that time was absolutely amazing. Every gym that we went into would be sold out. The crowds were, electric. And, you get done with a game and you felt like a Backstreet Boy. You would go to the bus and there would be, 1,000 people chasing after you just to get autographs,
Wow.
And just see the globalization of basketball in China to me was the most amazing, thrilling thing that I saw as a professional. Yeah, I mean, we won, big tournaments and things like that, and I've had some success in, as an individual, but that to me was amazing.
Okay, we've left somebody out of this interview, and what I'd like to do is have Jack ask you questions that would fit the bill more because he knows more about you. And Jack Degraw, take over for me a little bit.
No, that's all right, Ralph. Kipp's the star of the show. I get enough chance to talk. I'd like to ask you, Kipp, about your time at Arizona State.
Oh, with Bill Frieder
there? Yes.
Yeah, I was only there, the 1 year, and I was a walk-on, and I hardly even practiced with the team. I truly believe they used my grades for the team because that was the year that I think, what did they have? I don't know how many people got kicked off that team, but everybody had basically some kind of criminal charges against them. Was that? I don't know if you remember the name of Headache Smith, Stephen Headache Smith, Jamal Faulkner, Dwayne Fontana. Oh, man. Mario Bennett, he was on that team. Fantastic player. I think he played for the Suns for a few years. Yeah, it was just a group of knuckleheads there.
You didn't get much of a chance to practice with the team?
No, I was, I'm 6 foot, I was just growing and filling out. They're basically like, you're not ever going to play here unless you go to JUCO, so that's why I basically had to transfer out and go play basketball somewhere else.
Well, didn't you grow like 3 or 4 inches over that year?
Yeah, 4 inches and gained, I think it was 60 pounds. Yeah.
Wow.
When I started college, I was 17 years old. I was the youngest kid in my class in high school by a long shot. So, yeah, I was 17 years old living on my own at Arizona State.
I'm going to interrupt you. If it weren't for sports, what would be your passion? How would your life have gone?
That's an interesting question. I always wanted to be a psychiatrist. So, going through college, I did end up getting my pre-med requirements, and I had a psychology degree. So ultimately, I wanted to be a psychiatrist. But with the opportunity that I had with sports, I that kind of went to the wayside.
Okay. And my only other question, what was the adjustment like after you stopped playing ball, both mentally and physically? How did you get that competitive thing going, which it takes to be a world-class athlete, and that can't just turn that off? How did you take that competitive spirit?
That was hard.
Okay, I imagine so.
That was hard. When I was finally done with basketball, I got into coaching. I think that's usually what a lot of former players do.
Right.
So I got into coaching for a few years. Ended up being the president, / GM of the Yakima Sun Kings in the CBA. And I was working with Paul Wolpert. And, the CBA at that time was dying compared to like the G League, or that was, I think at that time it was called the D League. So there was only a few teams, but we had a really solid team there. And I got fired at the end of the year from there, and that left me with nothing in the coaching world at that time. So, what I did to be competitive and, fill that void was, I got lucky enough to be discovered by the WWE, and they signed me, and I got into wrestling. I mean, that's kind of how it went.
Well, now,
yeah.
What was the adjustment into wrestling athletically? What's the training like? How does it differ from the traditional basketball, football training, this, that, and the other thing?
I mean, different worlds. I mean, basketball practice, especially when you play in Europe, I played in Eastern Europe and, China and those areas. Basketball practices were hard. I mean, they were conditioning. You're running all day long, sprints, 2 practices a day. Then when you get into wrestling, Well, A, you're an entertainer, but B, the practices are like you're going through a car crash every day. So it has nothing to do with being like what I would call fit, being able to run, move, jump, be agile. It was more of like, how much pounding can your body take, falling on the mat, learning how to fall correctly, taking, missed punches and, moves that go bad,
Right.
It's apples to oranges when it comes to what your body goes through.
Were you billed as the good guy or the bad guy, if there's still that type of...
When I first started, I was a heel. I was, what you guys would be called the bad guy.
Okay.
But, you switch a couple.